Hi there, folks. This is Dr. Ellenburg. Welcome to our medical show here on News Talk 1020 AM. Also find us on FM 95.5. You'll find us online at 1020koan.com. That's 1020koan.com. You can live stream us on the web right to your computer. If you have questions today about your health, this is a live call-in medical show. We do encourage your phone calls. Our number here is 522-1020. It's 522-1020. So reminders that I find me during the week, you'll find me at the Ellenburg Center for Natural Medicine. Our phone number there is 563-2366. Website address for our clinic is drellenburg.com. That's DRELLENBURG. Check us out, list of our services, archive radio shows, suggested websites to visit, learn more about what out there in the world can affect your health. Call us at 563-2366 for when I'll be in those areas, seeing patients. All right, well, a lot to talk about today. Hope everybody is enjoying the sunshine while you can. Remember, this is the best time you're going to get vitamin D from the sun, and we're getting plenty of sunny days. So, in the winter, you don't get any vitamin D from the sun in Alaska, so now's the time of getting it in. So get out there and get it. Don't get burnt, but get some sun. And a comment, too, there was someone talking about healthy sunscreens. And many of us don't know this, but a lot of sunscreens contain things that really aren't the best stuff for your skin. And even some suggestions that even some sunscreens could actually increase your risk of getting cancer, not because they don't block the sun appropriately, because they contain things that can cause cancer. And through the folks at Environmental Working Group, or EWG.org, they have a cosmetics day. It includes sunscreens, and you can go in there and look up ones that are healthy to purchase, or if you already have ones you think are pretty healthy, you can see if they've actually analyzed those. And I don't have this app, but I know there's an app that for your smartphones, you can download it from their site for free and have it on your phone. So if you're out and about somewhere, you can pull it up in a grocery store, or if you're at some health food store, and then see if what you're purchasing as far as sunscreens are actually healthy and not detrimental to your health. Again, EWG.org. Check it out. Cosmetics database. They now have an app you can add to your phone. And it's an environmental working group. Great place. All right, well, we'll hop along here today. Again, reminder, you can call in. I don't mind taking a break from talking about my topics in medicine to answer your questions in medicine. Our number here again is 522-1020, 522-1020. And today we're talking about magnesium. We're going to talk about nitric oxide. We're talking about arsenic today. We're going to talk about foods that can decrease your cancer risk. Talk about avocados, and talk also about some different things that can affect thyroid function as well, and probiotics. Magnesium. So back when I was in naturopathic medical school in the mid-90s, or actually late 90s, I guess, to be precise, we learned about magnesium in biochemistry and a few other classes as well, nutrition, but the main one was biochemistry. And at that point in time, they were able to pinpoint like over 200 reactions that magnesium, which is a mineral, is used in your body for. And now we're saying it's involved in over 300 reactions in the body. And magnesium, as far as coming from food, dark green leafy vegetables, nuts, and seeds can be high amounts of magnesium. However, even though unless people are actually doing that daily, many people are deficient in magnesium. In fact, some of the testing that I've done over the years here in Anchorage with patients is we used to regularly check in someone's lab work a serum magnesium. And the problem with this test, which is pretty standard, is that it doesn't vary a whole lot. And, I probably didn't switch over to testing for magnesium in a different way until about 3.5, 4 years ago maybe, because we never found anybody with a serum magnesium that was low. And almost never anybody was high. So I was like, well, this seems strange, because, it's used in your body for so much. And I know many people aren't taking supplements out there and don't eat a lot of right foods. So why wouldn't they be low in its test, which is still commonly done and can be done through most labs. The big labs in the U.S. are LabCorp and Quest, and they can test for this too. And known as an RBC magnesium, a red blood cell magnesium. Once we started testing for that in patients, we actually started to find, maybe about 15 to 20% of individuals coming in were deficient in magnesium. And people ask, well, how would you know if you're deficient in magnesium? Well, a very common thing that can happen in a lot of people is you can have leg cramps at night, which can also be the result of being low in potassium as well. But magnesium typically can be the culprit frequently. You can feel tired. You could have really bad menstrual cramps, can be an indication of low magnesium. People can have high blood pressure because magnesium and potassium can affect your blood pressure. In fact, the patients we see who come in who are on hypertensive medications, the biggest thing, as well as anybody discuss these things with you, looking at potassium and magnesium, for example, as possible nutritional deficiencies that are causing your blood pressure to be elevated. There can be many other reasons, but these can be some of those things to look at in a patient coming in with high blood pressure. You can also have a low magnesium too, and have like osteoporosis. You can also mention fatigued already, but it can affect so many different things in the body, and some of these things aren't necessarily that easy to figure out because someone's low in magnesium. And again, the test that we're recommending people get if you think you're low in magnesium is the test that can be done. One of the big things too in looking at the amount of magnesium we actually take is we have these, of course, these things called the RDAs, right, folks? So recommended daily allowances, and really they should change it to the bare minimums and call it that way, because the RDAs are established based on how much you need to not get a deficiency or some type of a symptom related to being low in that nutrient. So in the case of magnesium, mentioned that, it's like, for example, vitamin C. If you're really low on that, super low on that, you can get scurvy. It's pretty rare, but it can happen. But these are not for optimal health. And so many people, even though the RDA for magnesium is somewhere between 320, I think, for women and 400 milligrams for adult men, it's a fact. And you get some patients taking almost a 1 gram a day or 1,000 milligrams a day of magnesium because they need that much. Or for myself, if I take about 400, I'm actually sitting pretty good and getting the rest of that help from my food, so extra. And magnesium is used by your liver for detoxification. Again, we mentioned the muscles already. We mentioned the high blood pressure can be involved in. We mentioned diabetes it can also be involved in. And a whole host of things we haven't even considered yet. And there was a great write-up on Vitamin D Council site by Dr. Stephen Cannell. Vitamin D Council probably is the best information online in English that lists out all kinds of studies on vitamin D. And you can get a free newsletter monthly. It's free to your email if you're that curious about vitamin D like I am. And so he actually compiled quite a bit of information here talking about magnesium. Now, even though these studies are old, it still indicates, who's going to do studies on magnesium? Not too often you're going to see a lot of stuff going on because it's a mineral. You can't patent it. So not a whole lot of money to be made in it. And yes, magnesium is used in medicine. It's used in hospitals at times for a variety of different things. But magnesium consumption, in one particular study that in 1985, even though this is old, it's still, there's not much look at these days. We have studies saying that among this one study, 85, 80%, and 75% of females, adult females, and elderly men were not getting the mean levels or intakes needed to even match the RDAs for magnesium. They also looked at it in children in a study several years later and found that many people are low. 1 to 5-year-olds are very low in magnesium. Again, we're not saying go out and give those kids pills, but in this case, nuts and seeds, like the green leafy vegetables. Actually having them eat things that are alive is not a bad idea. Of course, getting a 1-year-old to do that's a different story compared to a 5-year-old, but I think a little bit older would be easier to work with. And they also showed another study too, 93, that many elderly people are actually quite low in magnesium. And one of the big things there to be concerned about is as we all age, our ability to digest our food is diminished. We need a number of different cofactors and nutrients to help support, for example, making acid output in your stomach. And many people, as we get older, lack the ability to have proper digestion. And this is where things like being low in magnesium come into play, as well as calcium. You don't need to take magnesium with calcium to make it work. In fact, I'm on the side of things where I think people sometimes take way too much calcium. When I was, again, back in the naturopathic medical school, we were being told, well, tell people, over age of 40 to take 1,200 milligrams a day of calcium, citrate or calcium lactate. Well, the issue at hand is you don't need that much calcium. Your bones are made up of 8 other minerals besides calcium. So you need a nice complex of things, not just one thing. We mentioned magnesium being involved in energy. In this case, someone's fatigued and tired because magnesium actually is involved in the process within your cells to help make energy. You have these little batteries in your cells called mitochondria, and they make something called ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. And magnesium is crucially involved in that process. So if you're low in magnesium, low energy. We also know that magnesium is also involved and how vitamin D is metabolized in the body, and so it's helpful in that process specifically. We did mention testing already, and again on that note, a serum magnesium is kind of a waste of your time. There's still magnesium, a much more smarter one to be picking up. We mentioned muscle cramps. I've even had people have eye twitches or twitches in their cheeks, that sort of things, and once they've been put on proper amounts of magnesium, a lot of those things go away as well. So definitely, again, ask quite a bit. So what type of magnesium should I be taking? I don't recommend taking magnesium oxide. It's cheap. It's usually what's found in supplements or actually in Tums, for example. It's not highly absorbable. Magnesium glycinate, magnesium citrate would be a much better choice to be taking for consuming magnesium directly. And again, you don't have to take it with calcium to get the benefits of magnesium. So remember that part as well. A lot of times, multivitamins and minerals, they will always have magnesium in them typically. However, they're not at very high levels, at very baseline levels. Remember, the RDA for magnesium in men is at 400, women's around 300. So you need a fair amount of it daily, not just a little bit here and there. So again, if you just study yourself directly or information directly, you can go to Dr. Stephen Cannell's vitamindcouncil.org. Check it out. Lots of good stuff. This one's on magnesium, although most sites are on vitamin D. It was good stuff they put together. I feel I had to kind of pass that. You can actually do Epsom salt baths. So Epsom salts are made of magnesium sulfate. And so people can actually soak in that and get it into your muscles, help them relax. Or if you've been on a huge long run or something, or exercised, or been doing a whole bunch of work and you're kind of stiff and whatever, a good Epsom salt bath is a lovely thing to do for your muscles, and it makes you feel a lot better as well. So consider that. Don't use Epsom salts as your source of magnesium orally. You won't be pleased. It will cause some pretty violent diarrhea. So don't take it internally unless you have been told to by your provider. Let's put it that way. So, all right, folks, this is Dr. Michael Ellenburg. You're listening to our show today. This is our medical show. If you have questions about your health, give us a call here at 522-1020. It's 522-1020. You can find us online at 1020kon.com, and of course, just listen to us on 1020 AM simulcast on FM 95.5. Again, our phone number here is 522-1020. Questions about your health, give me a holler. Happy to take a break from what I'm talking about and talk to you about your health. All right, we will move forward. I have talked here on the show many times over the last year or more about a very important gas that's made inside our bodies daily, not inside your gastrointestinal tract, but for your body to do a variety of things, called nitric oxide. The website, this is by Dr. Janet Zand, is talking about proton pump inhibitors, or basically acid blockers, and what they could be doing or how they can affect the ability of your body to make nitric oxide. And so one area I want to kind of go off in a different direction for a second on the proton pump inhibitors or acid blockers is talking about, what are some other possibilities why somebody might actually have heartburn, rather than just making a whole bunch of acid in their stomach or eating the wrong foods, and that's why they're taking the proton pump inhibitors. And these proton pump inhibitor actually inhibits the release of acid from your gastric mucosa, your cells inside your stomach, and decreases it. Now that can be a big issue if people are trying to have good digestion, because if you're decreasing that amount of acid output, you can affect how you're going to break things down from the top down, meaning it begins on digestive mechanism turned on once those contents from your stomach enter the first part of your small intestine, known as duodenum. But getting on a proton pump inhibitors, well, besides eating the wrong food, what else can go on? Well, for one, a person can not make enough stomach acid. And so if you don't make enough stomach acid, you can actually get heartburn, okay, and that can cause problems. And also, proper acid secretion inside your stomach literally affects the way the valve on the top of the stomach, known as the cardiac sphincter, closes. So if you don't make enough stomach acid in your stomach, you can get heartburn because your sphincter is not closing properly and contents are moving from your upper part of your stomach and into your lower part of your esophagus and causing heartburn. So there's one possibility. You don't make enough acid. Another possibility is that you may have a hiatal hernia, where part of your stomach slides up alongside the esophagus as it connects to your stomach and affects the way that the valve closes. That's a possibility as well. So not just the fact that somebody has a lot of acid output here, start these drugs and stay on them forever, because a lot of time these proton pump inhibitors, and what are some of those these days? Well, a very popular one, of course, is Nexium. Over the counter now, you have things like Prilosec. You can find Zantac. It's an older one too. It's over the counter now. It used to be a prescription, but again, these patents ran out on those particular proton pump inhibitors, and therefore, they're now over the counter. But those type of drugs we're talking about, and they were never intended for us to take on a full-time basis all the time. It's intended for us to take it when we need it, so kind of as directed, or as needed, not every single day, every day. And long-term, taking these proton pump or acid blockers in the stomach, a lot of people can develop B12 deficiency because your B12 is bound up inside your stomach by the release of a factor called gastric intrinsic factor that's turned on by the amount of stomach acid in your stomach. It's like a signal for it. And if you're blocking that, you're not going to secrete as much gastric intrinsic factor, or GIF, that's going to bind B12 and then be absorbed later on in your small intestine. So that's an issue as well. Many people end up being deficient in a lot of minerals because, again, digestion is being impaired because they're taking a drug that is chronically lowering their amount of acid. Not the way to go about doing things. Okay, so there's that one for now. So let's go back to the article here on nitric oxide. So if someone is taking some type of an acid blocker, what they're finding out is, and this is from some work at the Department of Cardiovascular Sciences at Houston Methodist Hospital, is that proton pump inhibitors can decrease the ability of your body to actually make nitric oxide. And you're like, well, big deal. So what if that happens? What's the problem? Well, NO, or nitric oxide in your body, is a lot of things. It's involved in helping your vessels relax so they can dilate and help blood flow. It's involved in nervous system transmission. It even has involvement in your immune system. And so it's extremely important that we have good levels of nitric oxide in our body, and we make it. We don't store it. So in that case, you need to have the cofactors or things present that can help someone make their body make nitric oxide. And what are some food sources of that? Again, these dark green leafy vegetables. And most of the time, I'm not talking about lettuce or romaine or those sort of things. I'm talking about like leafy greens, kale, bok choy, mustard greens, collard greens, leafy greens. That's what we're talking about there, folks. And not salad. Okay, it's okay. The lettuce end of things, but not really high levels for creating a whole lot of good things in your diet. It's more kind of like filler, so to speak. But those are kind of the big sources of that. And anything that's basically grown in soil is going to take, because of the result of nitrogen being used in the soil during certain growth cycles of those vegetables. And it really depends on where they come from. But they also recommend some different foods here too. Celery, beetroot. So beetroot powder or beetroot juice is one of the highest sources or precursors needed to help the body make nitric oxide. Spinach, Chinese cabbage, endive, fennel, leeks, parsley, dill, turnips, cabbage. There's many more, but it's something that's mentioned here on this particular article. And by consuming these things on a regular basis, you're going to maintain your body's healthier levels of making nitric oxide, which also is involved in getting vessels opened up that allow oxygen to be delivered to certain areas. We do know that people who make low amounts of nitric oxide are increased risk for cancer as well. So you want to have good levels. Besides eating the vegetables we just mentioned, there's also a product that's been in the market for a while, and these got Neogenesis 40 is the name of it, where basically you have a lot of the precursors needed to make nitric oxide are within the supplement known as Neogenesis 40, and people can consume that. Obviously, getting it from your food is the best way to go. I'm all for that. But in some people, they need to have extra, and this is where this product comes in very handy. It's highly absorbable. You basically chew up wafer once or twice a day, and providing all the cofactors needed to help make nitric oxide inside your body. On their website, they have a lot of research on there too to read, which is pretty cool. And learn more about how nitric oxide is affecting your body, because it's important every day. You can't live without it. It's extremely important. Okay, well, we've got about 2 or 3 minutes, 4 minutes before the end of the bottom of the hour break, So we'll go into a short one here. Let's see if we can find a short one to talk about here for a minute. Here we go. Talking about probiotics. So probiotics are a collection of healthy bacteria that in this case are kind of bio meaning life, so pro-health basically. And you can get them from a variety of foods, things like sauerkraut, for example, kimchi, for example, yogurt's another source of probiotics. Not really, really high amounts, but nonetheless, they do have a fair amount of probiotics in those types of foods. And there's an article that appeared in the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology late last year, looking at probiotics being taken by women during pregnancy, and then were they taken afterwards as well? or just during pregnancy and after pregnancy for a period of time. All the mothers in this study had a history of allergies, and so their children were at a high risk of developing allergies. And about 30% of the infants whose mothers took these probiotics developed eczema, compared to 80% of the infants whose mothers did not. So everybody in both these groups had a high risk, and in those who took probiotics, they basically over half their risk of developing some type of eczema as they grew older, which is pretty impressive. And there's been other studies like this done too. For example, I know there was one done in England here about 3 or 4 years ago where the mothers again took probiotics while they were pregnant, and then when the children were born, the children were given probiotics orally along with their milk. Somehow they kind of powder and put in the child's mouth. But the point being is that study also demonstrated a very big reduction in the occurrence of asthma, eczema, and other type of allergy-related symptoms in women who already had problems in the first place. So trying to see them decrease their risk of passing on to their offspring, which, however, it worked out either through the flora that the mother was taking and eventually getting the child. That was the reason, hopefully, why it was helping the most. And of course, children can take this stuff directly as well. But in the first study here, mom just took it only. And I'd recommend anybody out there that if you end up you're having a child and you're concerned about you yourself have a history of allergies to eczema or asthma, for example, I'd recommend taking probiotics for sure. And definitely after the child's born, you talk to the pediatrician. But there are some very safe formulas to be taking for children. And you just put a dab, open a capsule up, lick your finger up on that child's mouth, boom, they got their probiotics in. So real simple. Breast milk is very high in bacteria. So a lot of healthy bacteria that help seed that child's gastrointestinal tract. And in children who were C-section delivery, a lot of them lack a lot of good flora in their GI tract because they're not getting exposure from natural childbirth. Whereas if they're breastfeeding and they had C-section, they're still going to get a fair amount of bacteria in there. But if you were not breastfed and you were a C-section baby, you definitely are probably low on the end of things concerning probiotics. So good stuff, and it's nice to prevent skin problems by taking them. So when we get back from the break, we'll talk a little more about probiotics, and then we'll get started the rest of our show. See you shortly here. Hang in there.
Waiting for the break of day, searching for something to say.
there, folks. This is Dr. Ellenburg. Welcome back to the second part of our medical show here on News Talk 1020 AM. Also FM 95.5 and online at 1020koan.com. Questions about your health, give me a call here, 522-1020. It's 522-1020. Before the break, we were talking about probiotics being used for young children, more like infants, I guess, to prevent eczema or a certain type of allergies or asthma. And the reality behind, too, is talking about, what types to take, because that's kind of a big confusion out there. And where we're now starting to get to in the world of probiotics, as far as the science is, there's actually certain types for certain things that we're starting to experience more. For example, in the one study I mentioned here earlier, if people say acidophilus, does that sound right? So there's Lactobacillus acidophilus. That's one type, one strain of probiotic, where in this particular study that was the more helpful agent was Lactobacillus rhamnus. So it really depends. Times, broad spectrum-wise, you can use different types of probiotics for a variety of things. And again, what you are doing is not necessarily replenishing what you're missing in your GI tract with probiotics. You're actually stimulating a process of an immune, in a sense, stimulation to take place. And that makes a lot more sense than how stuff actually works. And again, out there, too, some reminders, a good time to take probiotics. I've been seeing a lot of people here recently with some colds here in the summer, is that if you're on antibiotics for a bacterial problem, of any kind for that matter, you want to be taking probiotics. Now, you don't want to take them at the same time. We'll take them at a different time of the day. So if it's antibiotics in the morning, take it later in the day, later in the afternoon, later 3 or 4 hours later, you'll be fine. But if you take the antibiotic with the probiotic, the antibiotic will kill off the probiotic, so you won't get very far with that. Another thing, too, with probiotics is you should take it with food. The probiotics are very sensitive to pH in the stomach, and if your pH in the stomach's working fine and dandy, you'll wipe out quite a few of the probiotic if you're not taking it with food. Why does it help? Well, when you eat food, it does raise the pH in your stomach a little bit, and therefore less of the probiotic will die off and make its way to your small intestine and hopefully eventually your large intestine as well. So just some good reminders on how to use probiotics. Well, an article appeared in the British Medical BMC. No, that's something else. It's the point is, it came out, what are some foods that can cut your risk of cancer and heart disease? And so this article showed up actually in several places, but was talking about eating more walnuts, for example. But basically, the people who eat nuts, in this case, and when I say eating like nuts, like walnuts or almonds, I don't mean peanuts. Peanuts don't tend to have a high, giant amount of nutritional value. They're okay. There's peanut butter, but it's an omega-6 fatty acid, and a lot of times a lot of the peanut butter is basically rancid, to be honest with you, because it's so old from a lot of places that this company's making huge amounts of peanut butter. So when we say eat more nuts, we're talking about things like walnuts, almonds, cashews, those sort of things. And the big ones, of course, being almonds and walnuts, raw ones, not ones that are cooked in salt and put candy on top of them or something. We want real good old-fashioned nuts here, as far as the walnuts and almonds are concerned. And what they found from the study is that people who tend to eat more of those type of almonds or walnuts, for example, reduce their risk of death from cancer and cardiovascular disease. And a study that's been looked at for a variety of things called Predimed in Spain looks at more than 7,000 people between the ages of 55 and 90 years old. And they're looking at the prevention of cardiovascular disease and cancer when people are put on more of a Mediterranean type of a diet, which contains extra virgin olive oil, more fish versus meat, not a whole lot of pasta, low in grains, so mostly fats, good protein sources. In this case, also fats, also, and again, the almonds and walnut category. And what they found out is that people who eat more than 3 servings of nuts a week, which is about, say, an ounce or so a week, they had a 55% lower risk of death from cardiovascular disease and a 40% reduced risk of death from cancer. So those are kinds of big numbers. And one may ask, well, what we find in these nuts that are so good, supposedly? What are the healthy parts of it? Well, walnuts, including almonds, are good sources of omega-3 fatty acids. And so in our body, we have essential fatty acids your body cannot make. You must get it from your food, omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. And walnuts particularly have a high content of a fatty acid, omega-3, known as anti-inflammatory, and can involve in clotting, so to prevent it from clotting. but also membrane support. So every single cell on your body is made up of a fat layer, and consuming fat in healthy sources, healthy types, can be very beneficial to a variety of things in your body. Besides being high in omega-3 fatty acids, the walnuts are also have a fair amount of fiber and minerals such as calcium, magnesium, and potassium. So a lot of good things in walnuts to be consuming. They also noted that in other research that people who consumed nuts also had a lower body mass index and a smaller waist, and were found to be more physically active compared to those who never ate almonds or walnuts, for example. And certainly in the U.S., people consuming almonds and walnuts are on the lower end compared to other places. The Mediterranean type diets taking place in Italy, for example. But it's something you want to consider adding into your diet. They even make walnut butters, and they make almond butter. I've used almond butter for several years in a smoothie that I will consume a couple times a week, where I'm putting in now, instead of using goat's milk, because I'm off of that myself, using coconut milk with hemp protein powder. You can use whey protein powder as well if you don't have a problem with dairy. I have a problem with dairy, so I'm on the hemp protein powder. And then I add in blueberries, organic of course, because blueberries are very high in pesticides. I add in a banana, and then I add in almond butter, and grind it up in the blender and consume that. And I drink that, I'm good to go for 3 or 4 hours afterwards. So it's a great way to kind of get things going. And for people out there who don't eat breakfast, and you should eat breakfast, but for those who don't, because of timing, you can certainly look at making something easier for breakfast. And then the other part of that story, too, is not eating a whole lot of dinner at night. If you're eating a really big dinner at night, you're not going to be that hungry in the morning. And so your biggest meal day should be what, right? It needs to be breakfast or lunch, not dinner. That makes a really big deal in the end. All right, and again, that article, where did that appear? BMC Medicine Online, I forget the acronym for that. That appeared a couple days ago. Again, folks, Dr. Michael Ellenburg. If you have questions about your health, our number here at station is 522-1020. It's 522-1020. Questions about your health, give me a call. I'm going to take a break from what I'm talking about, talk to you about your health. And let's talk to you about one of my most favorite things to consume as far as a fruit, and even though people are like, that's a fruit, and it is a fruit, is avocados. Avocados actually are a fruit. An article appeared on naturalnews.com. It's an interesting site online. It has a variety of information about natural health issues, and even some news stuff as well, but naturalnews.com. Check them out. This article is entitled 7 Reasons Why Avocados Should Be Part of Our Daily Meals. I mean, eating them every day. And one of the first ones about avocados that I like to talk about is a really good fat content. And in talking about, people always kind of hung up on calories, right? What burns well better in the body? When we look at the amount of calories per gram, okay, it's a measurement. So 1 gram of healthy fat contains, 9 calories. And so 1 gram of protein contains, 4 calories per gram. Or, 1 gram of carbohydrates contains 4 calories. So you get much more for your buck if you're eating healthy fat sources. And avocados is one of those things. They're very high in omega-9, known as oleic acid. It's not an essential fatty acid, but it's still used with the body in a variety of ways. But avocados are a great snack and can be actually a great lunch for a lot of people to consume as well. And they, again, have really good plant protein in them as well. And there's even some benefit to demonstrate they may have some ability to fight cancer. Another one to consider looking at is talking about avocados and their ability to actually lower triglyceride levels. And so triglycerides are a measure of kind of a fat in our body. It can be quite elevated if people are consuming really poor diets or have type 2 diabetes, or even possibly have a thyroid problem, because thyroid disease, hypothyroidism, can affect the brain and cholesterol. If you have those problems that have not been screened for thyroid disease, get screened for it, because it could be the problem. Avocados are high in natural vitamin E, which we do know has some abilities to fight cancer, although there's been articles on it can cause cancer, it's said. I'm not quite into that group, but natural sources of vitamin E are much more healthier sources to consume than eating the synthetic sources. This one I hadn't heard of before. I got to double check this one again because I've just never heard this one, but saying that avocados can help the liver manufacture glutathione. And glutathione is a phenomenal antioxidant that's found within your liver and a lot of your cells, and helps the body detoxify. And that they're saying here that avocados can actually help increase the production of glutathione in the body, which is great. Lovely thing. Again, avocados actually are high in magnesium. Imagine that. Again, magnesium being very healthy for you in a variety of ways. Remember, over 300 reactions in the body that magnesium is involved in. The good idea of eating an avocado. Avocados are also high in, I mentioned lutein, which is a great antioxidant, especially for eye health. And that's, kind of, a lot of people say, well, avocados are fattening. I shouldn't be eating those. No, it's actually a good fat to be consuming, so it's what you actually want to be doing. We do know that avocados can promote good blood flow, and enough avocados actually can lower your blood pressure over a period of time. And last but not least on the list here, they have talking about improving brain function, and say avocados are a close second to blueberries for promoting brain health. So blueberries number 1 for brain health. Number 2, as far as the fruit is concerned, avocados, which is great. So again, to learn more about what type of fruits and vegetables to eat or not to eat versus their being organic or not organic, you can again visit the Environmental Working Group, or ewg.org, and they have a list of kind of the clean 15 and the dirty 15, so to speak. So avocados are on the clean 15 list, which means that their pesticide amounts that are actually in the fruit itself are much lower compared to, say, apples, which are on the highest for pesticide use that are being sprayed on. So definitely buy apples. You want to buy organic to decrease your exposure to pesticides. And let's roll that right into talking about, arsenic. And so our good friends at the FDA have decided to limit the amount of arsenic levels being found in apple juice. And what's funny about this article here is they'll say, well, the FDA has proposed a limit of 10 parts per billion for inorganic arsenic in apple juice. And inorganic arsenic may be found in foods and is present in the environment, both as a naturally occurring mineral and due to activities such as the use of arsenic-containing pesticides. Imagine that. I would probably say the arsenic actually is in there because it's coming from pesticide use. And again, apples are the most heavily laden pesticide sprayed fruit that there is. And you definitely want to be buying those organic. I know it costs a lot more, but at least you're getting something that's healthy and it's not going to harm you in the long term. So remember that part of that. But the FDA wants to limit the amount of arsenic found in apple juice, which I find is kind of funny. So saying we're going to stop at 10 parts per billion. Well, I know for a fact places like I think even in Soldotna, they're limiting the amount of arsenic that's found in the water down to 6 parts per billion because that's what the standards are at. And here's 10 parts per billion. So it kind of goes a lot of different places. And if you live in the Keenan-Soldotna area, arsenic is very high in the area of the soil. And always important, if you do have a well or anywhere else that matter in Alaska, get the water tested. Never a bad idea to get the water tested. When in a municipality, for example, in Anchorage, if you had a well, to buy the home, make sure the well has been tested for coliform bacteria and for nitrates. So make sure there's not fertilizers going into the water source, and make sure that there's not somebody got a leaky septic going into your well system, which would be terrible. But no one's checking for heavy metals, and the big one for Alaska we're checking for is arsenic. A couple of sites online is doctorsdata.com. Doctorsdata.com. You can purchase a kit in advance from them. They send it to you, and you send the water back to them. They measure it for you. It's great, and you get an idea. Am I getting healthy water here, or am I not? And if you get something in your water that's there, you're not going to taste it. So my parents have had a home at Big Lake for a very long time, and the water tested about a year and a half ago, and actually had 10 parts per billion of arsenic in it. Everything else is fine, just the arsenic. So we got that taken care of. We have a filter on the sink. Reverse osmosis systems are some of the best around for taking out arsenic, so I'd use one of those. They're great. And if you don't have a power supply and you're in a middle of nowhere type place and you're worried about the arsenic in your water, you can also use a good company out there. I've been buying a few of them from our cabin of nowhere called a Berkey filter system. So Berkey's, it's made in, I think it's made in England, but it's stainless steel and they get a gravity feed. They don't require any type of electricity. So it's a great thing to have around. They take all kinds of things out of the water, not just arsenic. So good stuff. But if you're going to drink apple juice, buy organic. There's no sense getting your nice big dose of arsenic when you don't need it. It has no use in the body at all. Okay, it's not there to help you out. It's there to harm you if you get too much of it. So remember that one. On arsenic, excuse me. Let's get some water here. All right, we got about the show. If you have questions or comments, now's a good time to call 522-1020, 522-1020. All right, where are we at here? So let's talk about, here we go here. Let's talk about probiotics. Did that already. This is an interesting article. So I don't typically tend to see these things very often, but basically there was a study that was done where patients, they were enrolled in Canada, and they were postal workers between the age of 25 and 65 who had an increased risk of cardiovascular disease and were invited to participate in seeing naturopathic doctors, besides their own doctors, to receive care looking at health promotion, counseling, nutritional medicine, and dietary supplementation. And during a certain period of time, at 7 different times, at preset times in work clinics, they saw the naturopathic doctors. And besides who they were seeing typically for their own providers, they were gone over like somebody would do in my own practice, and basically looked at, as far as supplements, one, of course, was diet. Do you exercise? Big top 2 things. Then look at supplementation. Do you take anything? And people were put on either fish oil, for example, or put on CoQ10 or coenzyme Q10, or everything is good for the healthy heart. And what they found, basically, is that compared to people who were in the control group who were not seeing naturopathic, there was basically a fairly decent reduction in cardiovascular risk over a longer period of time, and even a greater reduction in the occurrence of metabolic syndrome, which is basically like getting diabetes. And so metabolic syndrome, again, is kind of a precursor to type 2 diabetes, where someone's having a hard time, maintaining blood sugars. Their liver is making, a lot of triglycerides, a lot of cholesterol, and they also may even have a high blood pressure. They may have swelling and a variety of things that can come along with this, and even affect the kidneys in the long run as well. But in dealing with metabolic syndrome is, one, again, diet and exercise. Always a cornerstone of everything. We have a lot of things to show about what to do for your health, but always remember the assumption is you're doing something, eating well, and you're doing exercise. Those are kind of the main assumptions. If you're doing those things, then consider other recommendations we make on the show for a variety of things. But do those things first, and you can accomplish quite a bit. I mean, I have some patients who are in phenomenal shape, don't take hardly any supplements at all. They take a few things here and there, which is fine. But they're trying to do something about it. But with this article that came out of the Canadian Medical Association Journal, this combination of trying to prevent cardiovascular disease before it happens makes a lot more sense. And we need more of that. I mean, as we go on forward here with our healthcare system, we have a lot more people who are going to be sick, unfortunately, because we have an aging population. And people are living, in a sense, a little bit longer and adding those numbers. And so if we can prevent these things from happening before they happen in the first place, we're going to save patients and the economy, in a sense, a lot of money. So prevention has a huge key. Antiquated in a sense, other than screening type physicals or screening type diagnostic exams. Not a lot's being said about what you should be eating or what kind of diet you should be eating or what kind of supplements you should be taking. Hardly ever. So it's nice to see that, and a research study was done on naturopathic medicine, so I had to comment on that. So it was a good study, so it's good. All right, we got an article here to get to your folks. Again, any question, comments, 522-1020, 522-1020. We got about 6 minutes left in today's show. A very interesting study came out. So I'm a huge fan of people taking turmeric. Also, the constituents found in turmeric are known as curcumin, or the Latin name for turmeric is curcuma longa. But curcumin, we've talked on the show plenty of times about its use as an anti-inflammatory, as a healer of gastrointestinal health, as an anti-cancer herbal supplement. So a variety of things it can be used for. But an article that appeared in the Wall Street Journal, looks like about 2 weeks ago, looked at a study that used curcumin with depression. Never seen that before. So it was a clinical trial on major depressive disorder, and it showed that curcumin equaled the effects of the prescription drug Prozac without the adverse effects. We know curcumin to be very good for being an anti-inflammatory, but what's going on here with depression? How would it even be involved in that? And the article goes on to talk about that, people with depression have a lot higher levels of inflammation actually in their brain directly. And that people with depression also have lower levels of neurogenesis in their brain. And what that means, neurogenesis is making new brain cells. And so they're making fewer brain cells than people with no history of depression and those with. So that's a big deal. It's also a very powerful as I mentioned, inflammatory agent and a huge stimulator of this neurogenesis. So what we're getting at here is that, for example, Alzheimer's. We've got, degeneration of the brain over a long period of time in losing the capacity to make new brain cells. And here we now have a nice, powerful herbal nutrient, not only anti-inflammatory, not only anti-cancer, also good for your GI tract, good for your liver, but also a stimulator of neurogenesis, stimulating your nerve cells in your brain to grow. And the study was done, again, as I mentioned, published in BCM 95 in a phytotherapy research, but again, it did appear in the Wall Street Journal about 2 weeks ago. It's not often you run into things like this where curcumin can be used in this direction as well for treating depression. It's pretty impressive. And I never really thought too much about people having inflammation in their brain when you have depression, which you do and can. Not everybody has to have it, but many people do. And people responded quite well and tolerated the treatment quite well with very few side effects. And they actually did a combination of things where they had people taking both a combination of Prozac and curcumin or just taking curcumin. And they saw some major benefit in both arms of the study, which is very impressive. And again, a study was made available online in July edition of the Journal of Phytotherapy Research. But consider taking CoQ10 for your brain health. It's anti-cancer, so that's why I've been on it for some time. But brain health sounds great, so I'm glad I've been taking it. I get some added benefits from that. Okay, some reminders here. We got about 2 minutes for the show's out. During the week, you'll find me at the Ellenburg Center for Natural Medicine. Our phone number there is 563-2366. Our website address is drellenburg.com. And you also find me here, of course, on Mondays from 2 to 3 p.m. And we do have archive radio shows on our website as well, ellenburg.com. I'll check those out as well. And I do see patients in the Kenai areas, usually monthly, 632-2366. All right, so let's hit one more topic here before we get off the show today. Curcumin, we did that. We got a short one here somewhere. Maybe, maybe not. Well, let's see here. Well, let's do some recap then of a few things. We mentioned today in Environmental Working Group's site, ewg.org, they have a cosmetics database, which you can look at sunscreens in there as well, and even they include toothpaste and even shampoos and those sort of things, and deodorants. But if you're trying to figure out what type of healthy sunscreen I should be purchasing versus buying whatever out there, it's important to go look at their site. And I think they even list even just regular ones like a copper tone or whatever might be on there as well, tell you what's in it and why you may not want to put it on your body, depending on what things are in these type of sunscreens. But ewg.org, there's also now an app. Now you can put on your phone, look stuff up. That's pretty cool. That's, again, ewg.org. Check that out. We talked today about probiotics, and I'm always asked, well, what's the better brand? There are all kinds of brands of probiotics. And what I recommend, if you take probiotics on a regular basis, that you actually change up different company signs and do different strains of it, different types. So it's always taking the same one all the time. Very good idea to be doing that. And there's the sign. We'll wrap things up here, Gay. I do appreciate though people that are listening today, and hope you enjoy the information. And we'll be back again next Monday from 2 to 3 p.m. Have a great week.
Full-blown silence in an empty room. A former bride and a former groom. A folding table and a folding chair. A folded hand of poker there. All new directions must go everywhere. Big round people in a cool little square. Or you can cut it with a boat or a plane. Man, it's gonna take a new train. You'll be leaving on a new train, far away from this world of pain. And when you look out your window, you'll see your home, your baby, and your family. No milk.